We are live. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel. Welcome to the Jeet Kune Dialogues, episode number 298. Ask me anything with yours truly. As you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the dialogue. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the Jeet Kune dialogues. Okay, so I have no dialogue partner um, uh, to whom I should introduce you today. So we can just give me 1 second. Let me just make a last minute check on the email, see if anybody sent anything in last minute. Interesting. I do have a request here for additional self-defense classes. Okay. So I just finished a series of workshops for employees of one of the state departments, and so that was an interesting insight. Being able to give people ammunition, so to speak, right? People who are not, for the most part, they're not going to take it seriously, all right. They're not going to follow up and become seriously involved or what have you, which is something that has always fascinated me, that the whole thing about teaching self-defense courses, right? Like, I've never been a fan of it. uh I'll tell you a story about it if you want. So Bucky wants to know. Oh, okay, so let's not talk about self-defense courses, right? Okay, so Bucky says, what was your early training like, and what did you find most challenging? Okay, so early training. Early training was going to the movies and taking a notebook. It was supposed to be like my French or Spanish vocabulary notebook, and instead it became my kung fu note taking book. So I'd go to the movies and I would watch the movie and I would make scribbles. I would make notes on the techniques that I saw them doing. And then I'd go home and I would practice those techniques to the best of my memory and to the best of my ability. So in those days, Bucky, my heroes were Chan Sing, Chi Kwan Chun, Chen Kwan Tai, those guys. This is long before Jackie Chan came on the scene, right? Because I was going to the movies when I was only 7 years old, Bucky, right? So that was how it started. Um, then in '71, when Bruce Lee hit the screen, that changed everything. I mean, I was already serious about what I was doing, but now there was there was a different kind of approach. But there wasn't that much material available on him at the time. That availability of material came 2 years later in '73 when he died, and then Fighting Stars magazine was started, and that's really when the ball got rolling. I mean, there was stuff in '71 and '72 and what have you, but it was after Bruce Lee's death, in my experience, that's when the ball got rolling, and that's when the superstardom thing started. So when there was information on Bruce Lee available, one of the first things that that let me pull it up off the, well, you know what, maybe I can pull it off the screen. One of the first things that I got my hands on was a publication out of the States. I'm sorry, not out of the States. It was a publication out of the UK, and it was, let me see if I have a cover shot of it here. It's a thing called Bruce Lee, my Jeet Kune training manual. Some of you will probably recognize it by that name. Um, if I can find the picture of it here. It wasn't until many years later when I discovered that it wasn't actually like an authentic or authorized publication. Hang on one second, Bucky. Let me see if I can find it. Jeet Kune, my training manual. Let's see. Yeah, that's the one. All right, Bucky, give me a second. I have all these things on in different places on my computers and what have you. But then sometimes when I need it immediately, right, I'm like, what the heck? Okay, so let me get this. There we go. Right, so it was this thing. When I show you guys what it, you'll go, oh yeah, I know that. This thing here, right? Bruce Lee, my martial arts training guide, Jeet Kune. So, like I was saying, years later, I discovered this was not authorized. It wasn't authentic or what have you. There's one particular photograph in the pages of this book that it shows Bruce Lee doing his isometric contraction thing on the rack, and what he would do is he would put like a cushion, right, um, on his forearms while he did the exercise. And the caption of the photograph says stiff, heavy gloves, because the it's not a pristine photograph. So you can't really tell. And so there were no gloves, but these were people who somehow got access to different photographs. Because I think in the UK, I happened to just see this right here. I think in the UK, Kung Fu Monthly was a more popular publication than it was in the States, and so I think in the UK they had to a certain degree access to stuff that was more of a ripoff nature than anything else. So this was one of my first books, what have you. Now, this one I got recently, The Secret Art of Bruce Lee. And if you see here, it's Kung Fu Monthly, the archive series. And what's in here is, I guess these were never like officially published or whatever, but but it's photographs from the Palos Verdes shoot that Bruce Lee and Dan Inosanto did, and there's different. You guys have seen these pictures over and over again. But what I find interesting is that they call this the secret art of Bruce Lee, and so I got this. I think as soon as it came out, and I would never say this in public, but there's a ton of Bruce Lee stuff that I collect because, well, it's Bruce Lee stuff, and then I don't even read it, right? It took me, I think it took me about a month after I bought, and I don't know how I ended up with 2 copies of Wrath of the Dragon. It took me about a couple of months before I cracked that open and started reading it. This thing here, I think I read like the first few pages of it or what have you, but don't ever tell anybody that I'm like a crazy Bruce Lee collector, because I'm not really, right? I don't have um, the toy figures and what have you, but books, I tend to avail myself of almost everything that is that's put out there. Anyhow, to get back to your question, Bucky. So there was training from books. Then I started getting together with some guys. Um, I don't remember if I doubt very much that when I joined the local school, so it was a school called Wushu Kwan, right? Wushu Kwan essentially translates to mean school of martial art, right? School of Chinese martial art, what have you. It was a system that I think was born in the UK. And then the guy, there was a local guy who had gone to university in the UK and then came back to Barbados and opened up a branch. It is a legitimate system with followers around the world. There's schools in Trinidad, in Barbados, still in the UK. If you look it up, you'll see that it's a legitimate system. And so I joined them because I knew, as a Bruce Lee guy, there's no way I was going to be doing karate, right? So Wushu Kwan was the closest thing to a kung fu system that there was on the island. So I joined them, and I think I lasted all of 6 months before they got annoyed with me because I was always talking about Bruce Lee and what have you. And in fact, well, no, let me not say anything too disparaging, because you never know who's listening, right? But they kind of asked me to retire, and that is probably when, now as an independent martial artist, and I would go visit the Shotokan karate place, right? I had trained myself in Shotokan because in my book collection, I didn't stick to just the Bruce Lee stuff. I had Masayama's Kyokushin book. Like a lot of people of my era, we had the Bruce Tegner books. So I trained from that stuff as well, right? My backyard in Rendezvous Gardens became kind of a meeting and testing ground for people from different systems and what have you. I had the Shotokan guys come by, Kyokushin guys come by, and so I got to exchange with people and see what was out there, see what it was that I was teaching myself about Jeet Kune, how it worked against other people and what have you. I used to go down to the Shotokan place on Sunday mornings, and out of respect, I never the interactions, the sparring stuff that we did in the bathroom. Well, not the bathroom, like the changing room. So they trained in on the hall, right, which doubled as a dance floor when there were parties held at this particular institution. So classes were conducted on the hall, but off to the side there was like a changing room and bathroom area. And so out of respect, I didn't interact with those guys up there on the training floor. And we got there, I think we got there maybe like 2 hours before official class time. So we could have gone up there and done stuff, but I still, I wasn't that much of a ruffian that I would be disrespectful towards what they were doing. So I would spar Sunday mornings with those guys down there. I would go watch them during the week, if on my days off or what have you, and that's what I did until I joined the airline industry and spent some time in Seattle, trained with Jesse Glover's little brother, Michael, in Seattle. Kept on going out to Seattle every July 20th to pay my respects. And in 83, started with Inasano. The other part of Bucky's question was what was the most challenging? So Um, Bucky, this is going to sound strange, but there was nothing challenging for me, and that does not because I was talented or skilled or whatever, but there was nothing challenging because I loved it all. So I don't remember going through a period where I was like so frustrated that I wasn't getting this or getting that, because I was relentless. There is no way I was going to train whatever it is that came my way. And then once I started with Sifu Dan, whatever it is that was put in front of me, I was going to work it. So challenge, if anything, the challenge was not having enough time to commit to martial art because I had to work to make money. Right. In fact, I was just talking with an old airline friend of mine, and she was reminding me about when I tried to convert her to become a runner. Because there was a time, Bucky, when I ran 3 times a day. I became somewhat of a running addict. And in fact, now that I think about it, 83, one of the reasons for going out to sea in the Sano was because I was a little bit afraid that I was running more than I was doing martial art. Yeah, now I remember. And so that's how that happened. So challenging, I wouldn't say there was anything that was challenging. Like there was anything that, and again, it is just because I was welcoming to whatever it was that came my way. I'm not saying that I was superbly talented or anything, that I understood everything the first time that it was shown to me or what have you. Not really. So I don't look at anything in my martial art life to this day as being challenging, so to speak. All right, thanks, Bucky. I think I took like 17 minutes to answer one little question, right? Um, so let me just check in and see who is here. So Bucky's here, Terry Valor, Ron Reagan. I hope I see Bucky. I hope I see you and Ron Reagan tomorrow. We gotta show Ron that stuff that we did from Cebu 4, and I forget what my plan was for the empty hand session. But anyhow, all right. Lance Lamont is here. Anthony Labrador, Mark David Collins, Mick Tully, howdy. Simon's here. Ryan Chafin. All right. Okay. All right, Simon. I know. Oh wait, let me do the fancy thing. Watch this. I know you've been in JKD for a long time, but did you discover or rediscover anything about JKD from the Titans? So I talked about this, Simon, and it wasn't even an epiphanet, which is a word that I made up for like a small discovery. This one was an epiphany, and it was simply when Cass was doing stuff, and in my estimation, it came from Muay Thai, but he never mentioned the words Muay Thai. He never said clinch. He never said tie up or what have you. And so all it was just, here's the technique, let's say. Here's the strategy. Here's the setup. Here's the tactic behind it. And that's when it hit me. And so I think I did a whole I Love Jeet Kune broadcast about it. So the discovery, so to speak, was as simple and as, I don't know, maybe not too intelligent as it sounds. If you don't put a label on it, then it is Jeet Kune, right? Or maybe that's not as well expressed as it could be. But my point, Simon, is this: you and I know there are people out there who talk about other arts being brought into Jeet Kune, people adding styles to Jeet Kune, people thinking that Jeet Kune itself is a combination of styles or combination of arts or what have you. And so the discovery or the epiphany was because it became a habit, of a certain group of people, including me, Inosano influenced people, following what he was doing and giving credit and naming where things came from, as opposed to just doing what you do without giving it a label. And that simple thing, right? Maybe I'm just not as smart as other people, but that simple thing made a huge impact on me. And I realized that decades ago, when that trend to say, oh, this elbow is from this art. Oh, look, this technique is from that art. Oh, this other technique is from that art. I get why, again, this is my opinion. I, to me, the reason why Inosano was doing that was because he's an honorable man and he wanted to give credit and he wanted people to understand that technique could come from anywhere and that this technique from this art could fit in with this technique from this art and what have you. But see, in so doing, by naming the arts and what have you, that's where people formed the impression that he was saying all these arts are what go together to make Jeet Kune. And that's never what he said. So it's one of those things where in Jeet Kune, there are no answers. There's only questions. And then there's the questioning of the answers, right? Chris Kent said, this was another one from Titans. Chris Kent said the four most dreaded words in JKD were sometimes, it depends, and now Ron Reagan, I'm embarrassed, I can't remember what the other one was. Sometimes, it depends, maybe, I think, or perhaps, something like that, right? And that's because you got to do the work, you got to find out for yourself, right? That's what I mean by there are no answers, right? As in, it is specifically this, and it is always specifically this. And I had an interaction with our good friend Paul Johnson the other day about the stick work and how the stick work opens up the center line. And I'm like, I don't think stick work always opens up the center line, right? And even if stick work opens up the center line at some point, right? Does it stay open the whole time? And I didn't say this to him. And then who was it? Somebody else commented and said exactly what I was thinking. Was it Will Lanier? I don't remember who it was. Sorry, right? But shout out to whoever it was. And I remember Inosano saying a difference between Wing Chun and Kali is that Wing Chun seeks to preserve the center line and Kali opens the center line. But the thing about Kali opening up the center line is that it's to draw you in, right? So it's attack by drawing. So Kali opens up the center line and then shoots back in on center. Whereas Wing Chun would seek to preserve the center line and force you to go around. And when you go around, then come straight down the middle to you. So it's like the best of two worlds, right? It's not always this, it's not always that, it's the best of two worlds, right? So those two things, Simon, that the simple act of not naming an art or where an art comes from 30, 40, 50 years ago might have gone a long way to eradicating some of the confusion that arose out of the seminar presentation system. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you. All right. Okay, so Anthony wants to know when is the next seminar. So Anthony, I assume you're talking about Titans. I'm glad you asked that question. All right. So I put up the postcard. I messed up the postcard yesterday. It's not, and thanks Ron Reagan for pointing it out. It's not uh, February 2nd and 3rd. It's February 1st and 2nd. So I will have to do the website for it. Information will be at titansofjkd.com because that will be the website for this seminar for as long as we will be putting together this thing. The airport, the location is confirmed. The dates are confirmed. The two instructors are confirmed, and so now we start promoting. It was funny when I put up the postcard. James Bishop said, "Well, that didn't take very long," and I was like, "No." And I go, and one of the reasons why it didn't take very long is because, well, if we are lucky, we might have 100% of the people who attended actually know, because there's one guy from Coral Springs who registered and did not show up, and I didn't even realize that he trained at American Dragon. So, but 100% of the people who did show up, I I won't be surprised if they all repeat in Titans 4. I really wouldn't be surprised. I can't think of any reason why they wouldn't. Right. So yeah, so James said that didn't take very long. And I was like, no, man, when you put together a spectacular event, this is what happens, right? The hotel wants to work with us again. And everybody that I spoke to, I haven't put this video out, but I did do like 15-second videos of everybody while they were training and just getting feedback, what they thought about the seminar. And I seriously and honestly, I don't think there's anybody who attended the seminar who didn't have a good time. I don't think there's anybody who was like, oh, well, we could have this and we could. Well, no, that's not true. Because there were people who wanted to see like a weaponry thing, right? So, we'll see what we do for them next year. Right. So yes. So the February 1st and 2nd of 2025, Anthony. Hope you can make it. Um, Simon says he did wushu. Right. Yeah, because Wushu Quan is headquartered in England. It was the brainchild of, I want to say, C.K. Chan was the guy who formed it. If that's familiar to you, Simon, let me know. C.K. Chan and Wushu Quan, right? Hey, Cesar. Okay, so all right. So can I show that? Yeah, because this is over on the YouTube. Cesar said, "What is the best book for understanding Bruce Lee's mindset and his way to learn by himself?" Hmm. What is the best book for understanding Bruce Lee's mindset and his way to learn by himself? I'm going to say Commentaries on the Martial Way, Cesar, because that is not quite a how-to book. It's a what-to, right? It's a what-to-do book. And I think that because it's interspersed, because again, it is from his notes and what have you, I think that Commentaries is the book that gives you the greatest insight into Bruce Lee's way of looking at things. Um, Words of the Dragon, Artists of Life, Striking Thoughts, all of those help as well. But I think if it's strictly about training his way to learn by himself, Yeah, I think commentaries on the martial way would be the best way to go on that one. What do you think? Make, I mentioned to Bob Breen that a road trip has been long overdue. Would redcoats be welcome? Um, as an Irishman, but a transatlantic titan, man, Mick, if you guys showed up in Miami in February, uh, after I recovered from my heart attack, we would have such a good time. All right. Um, yeah. But Mick, in talking with Terry Barnett last week, I did not know that Chris and Cass had come over with Inasano. So although we got February next year set for Miami, imagine a return of Chris Kent and Cass Magda to the UK in a Titans event. That might be pretty sweet too. But I'd love it if you and Bob Breen, can you imagine? Man, Mick, now you got me all excited because if you and Bob Breen showed up in Miami next year, I don't think I would go to sleep. I think I would be so ragged by the time the seminar wraps up on Sunday night because I don't think I would get any sleep at all. Seriously, right? So yeah, that would be awesome. That'd be more than awesome. That'd be fantastic, right? Yeah. Okay. So Anthony says he'll try to make it. Um, okay. So what's this? Will Titans always be in Miami? Does anyone who attended have a guesstimation on how much overall it was for the seminar, stay and whatnot? All right. So let's see. It was early registration was 199 for both days, Anthony, and I think the rooms were also 199 per night, if I remember. So that'll give you that should give you some estimates, right? Will it always be in Miami? Um, Ron Reagan and I have talked about this. We wanted to see how successful it would be here. Um, and there's some kinks to be ironed out and what have you, but both of us, I would say, do have, like I was just saying to Mick, imagine an event across the pond, as they say in the UK. So imagine an event on further north on the East Coast, right? Or further north, or even a Titans event in the Midwest or what have you. Who knows? So I can't say now that it will always be in Miami. Personally, I'd like Miami to be considered like headquarters for Titans at JKD. But yeah, if there was a way, if we had sponsorship and that type of stuff and we could take it on the road, yeah, I could see it growing into something other than that. All right. Terry Valla says, I'll be up for Titan Europe. Yeah, man, me too. Right. Crockett and Tubbs. Yeah. Okay. So right. So Ronnie's saying, Anthony, approximately 200 a night. Right. Okay. Cesar says again, when you're interviewing Chris Kent after Titans, he said that he was impressed by the level of analysis that Bruce Lee did when highlighting and annotating his readings. Oh yeah, yeah. So guys, if you didn't see it, what Cesar is talking about was Chris talking about because the Bruce Lee library was in Idaho at some point. I don't know if it's still there or not, but Chris was saying that when he got access on the occasions that he had access to Bruce Lee's to books in Bruce Lee's library, it wasn't it wasn't like this, where I have only read whatever, whatever, and there's nothing in it. No, it was more, hang on, like, let me see if there's a good page. It'd be more like this type of stuff, right? With the highlighting and what have you, right? He said that's what there was, like an abundance of highlighting and writing in the notes and what have you. I don't have, let's see. That was something I never did in, so in this one, yeah, see? So like in this one, but I never wrote in the margins of my books. I don't do that. I do that in my notebooks. So I'll be at an Inasano seminar, right? And he'll say something, and to him, it's like it's it's not even an afterthought or what have you, but it sparks something in me. And so I'll have, like, over here is where I'm making my notes on what he's doing. And then there'll be like what we call a Johnson box off to the side. And that has like annotations in it, look at something, work on something. And I can tell you, I was doing that instinctively 41 years ago in 1983. In my first notebook, I could show you that. Over here on the left side is where I'm making notes about what's going on. And then over here on the right side is something, but I remember doing that for Sombrata, because I looked at the guys doing the Sombrata and I was like, there is no way that they are finding each other's weapon like that. This is something that they have memorized. And so you could see in my notes, it says commit to memory, right? I remember that distinctly. Right. So yeah, that was Chris Kent's thing, right? Okay. All right. So I wanted to I'm glad that somebody asked about Titans, because I didn't want to seem too self-serving, right? Um, uh-oh, I was afraid this was going to come up. So Simon wants to know what happened to Cass being on the podcast, right? I was fortunate to train with a Magda affiliate, and the JKD coming from Cass was amazing. Simon, I wouldn't be surprised if that was Dave Carnell that you trained with. I met Dave once, I think only, right? Awesome guy. So what happened with Cass coming on the podcast? So this is podcast episode number 298, right? Maybe in 2 weeks. Okay, right? Maybe in 2 weeks. That's all I'll say for now. Okay, so it was one of Dave's top guys. Yeah. Yeah. Ask anybody who has met um, has met Cass, right? Furthermore, who has trained with him, right? Top notch, top notch. Um, has an aversion to social media, so that's why I'm going into what 6 years of the podcast or what have you, right? And he's not come on it, right? Um, but and I don't think Glenn is on here, and I don't think Bill Burner has met Cass yet. No, no. Well, yeah, he met him at Titans, but maybe it was a throwaway thing. But he said episode 300, and we're at 298, so we'll see, right? You guys keep your fingers crossed, like I am, and we'll see what happens. All right. Okay. So one, like I was saying, I didn't want to be too self-serving and start the show talking about Titans 4 and what have you. One of the things that I did want to mention, because I think it happened. I think it happened twice. There were like two posts and what have you, and it's one of those other age-old discussions about Jeet Kune and oh, this is what it was. There was a guy who put up a video. There's a YouTube video. Okay, let me not tangent off and just deal with what you guys send in to me. So, how do you think Bruce Lee would handle the excess of access of information today, YouTube and so on? Some call it infoxication. Infoxication. That's cute. How do I think Bruce Lee would handle it? Um, I mean, stuff like this, hypotheticals like this, what ifs like this, I say your best bet at answering them is to base it on what evidence you have. So Bruce Lee had 2,500 or more books in his library. So definitely he was an infomaniac for sure. But see, the thing about the excess of access to information today is the quantity versus the quality. You see? So I was just going to tell you guys about the video that it's titled JKD versus Muay Thai. And my question about that is, what makes the guy who is JKD, what makes him JKD? Because when you look at what he's doing, somebody said that it's JKD because he's using attack by combination. It's JKD because he's using attack by drawing, or he's using simple direct attack, or angular attack, or what have you. And somebody else pointed out those things are not distinct to JKD only. So my question again was, what makes this guy Jeet Kune? Other than the guy listing wherever it is that you list what fighting style you are, other than him listing that what he's doing, that what he trains is Jeet Kune. So the whole debate was, well, remember that Jeet Kune was never designed for sport. Okay, so let me ask you this. In sport, in combat sport, right? In martial sport, whatever it is you want to call it, what do? They attack, they defend, they counterattack, right? Okay. So in street fighting, what happens? Somebody attacks somebody, somebody else defends, and there's counterattacking. If we look at the technical base of combat sports, there's striking. To keep it simple, there's striking and there's grappling. What happens in self-defense? There's striking and there's grappling. Now, so those are the things that combat sport and self-defense have in common. Now, what do they not have in common? Well, there's not necessarily an agreed upon location, and there's not necessarily agreed upon rules that people are going to stick to and what have you, right? So it's not designed for sport, but that doesn't mean that it could not be, that there couldn't be a sport application of it, right? Bruce Lee trained in kicking and punching and elbowing and kneeing. If you watch Bruce Lee on screen, you can see to a certain degree. And again, if you watch the 1967 Long Beach Internationals, what do you see? You see a harbinger of combat sport. The sparring demonstration that they did had takedowns in it. It had kicking and punching in it, not too far removed from what became the sport of kickboxing. Okay. As Sifu Dan would say decades later, in JKD training, in the grappling wasn't contested. So you see that in the 67 demonstration. After the takedown is like the end of it. You know what I mean? So it's not contested. Jiu-jitsu came along, and I think for some people, jiu-jitsu introduced the that area of contestation of the grappling. So that added something to it. My point is that, and I did a podcast about this long time ago, about Jeet Kune being invisible. And it's actually something that is reflected it's either in this book or it's in the textbook, Jeet Kune, the textbook, where Chris Kent and Tim Tackett talk about how difficult it is to describe Jeet Kune, because there's a point at which Jeet Kune might look like boxing. So there's a point at which Jeet Kune might look like kickboxing. There's a point at which Jeet Kune might look like some kind of grappling system. What makes it Jeet Kune? What makes it Jeet Kune is the mindset that went into the training, as well as the actual training protocols. That's what makes it Jeet Kune. The way you train what you train is what makes it Jeet Kune. You know, on another part of the internet, I still get questions, and I think people will always ask this question about what's the best out there. What's the best art out there for self-defense? What's the best art out there for MMA victory or what have you? And I try to tell people all the time, it's never the art. It's always the artist. It's the guy who is able to maintain I'll use a bad word in JKD. The guy who's able to maintain the range, right, where his skills are put to better use than his opponents. So it's the guy. Okay. That doesn't mean that you could go in there and do any kind of nonsense or what have you. Now, I'm not saying that, right? But it's never the art, always the artist, right? Okay. Maybe the principles. Well, the principles of Jeet Kune: simplicity, directness, non-classicalness, economy of motion, efficiency, what have you. All those things are needed in both self-defense and also in combat sport, in martial sport. Those things are needed. So the principles would again be comparable, right, and interchanging. Okay. Mindset is essential for self-protection. Mindset is essential for life, Simon. So mindset is essential for self-protection, which is one of the exact things that I said to the kids at the workshops that we were doing. But yeah, mindset is essential in combat sport too. I mean, the guy who doesn't have I think with Scorch on here, yeah, Scorch says Hickson Gracie forced his opponents to fight in his range. So you think that Hickson Gracie didn't have a mindset for combat sport? Come on, right? Mindset all the time, right? Okay. Simon says tactics over techniques. Yep, for true, right? And Cesar says it's the Indian, not the, where's that? It's the Indian, not the bull. that's that's pretty good, right? No, but here's the thing. Okay, I'm not saying, but here's the thing. You can't say that sometimes it isn't the bull, because there could be such a thing as a better constructed bull, right? Now I'm thinking about what you call it. Um, when we used to explain to people about the areas of training in Filipino Kali, and man, see, I haven't run the big school in so long. Now I'm trying to remember, but when it came to things the throwing weapons and the projectile weapons and that type of stuff, I had a phrase that there were historical or archaic, and then there was contemporary and improvisational, something like that. So what I'm saying is that a bull from back then, you might have had one Indian tribe that made a better bull than the other. So now, to a certain degree, it is the bull, right? Simon says tactics over techniques, yes, but there can also be such a thing as a superior technique. I don't know that there's such a thing as like a ton of superior techniques, right? But, and then again, maybe I'm getting myself in trouble with this. Maybe it becomes a superior technique because of the training method. And maybe the artist or the athlete becomes superior in that instance because of that. Yeah. So maybe, anyhow, you get where I'm going with this, right? Okay. So, magazine retriever. In the mid 1990s, was there a falling out between Dan Inosanto and Linda Lee, or was it just a minor disagreement over the JKD nucleus? A major falling out, was there a minor disagreement or a falling out between Inosanto and, I don't know. Like everybody else who wasn't there, I've just heard stuff, because there was, so for example, there was the letter from Linda Lee praising Inosanto and mentioning him as let's call it, I'm paraphrasing, but the guy who had the most time with Bruce Lee, and the one person that Bruce Lee considered to have gotten it all, right? And so Inosanto was the guy that Bruce Lee entrusted to carry on, so to speak, in his absence. Then you hear about people suing other people for use of the JKD symbol, the JKD logo, or what have you. Then you hear about people berating Inosanto at a meeting of the Nucleus, and then he doesn't join, and you hear all this stuff, right? So I can't tell you for sure that there was a falling out between the two of them, and whether it was major or minor, because I wasn't there, and I don't know. Now, have I had conversations with people about what went on? Yes. And a lot of those conversations remain, a lot of those conversations are and will and should remain inside information, not for public dissemination and what have you. But if you look at what was put out there, and I mean, I'm not, everybody knows there's always inside knowledge, right? But if you look at what was put out there by the Nucleus, ultimately, it seems to me that the intention was to erase any idea that original Jeet Kune and Jeet Kune concepts, that there was this huge disparity. Um, and I can talk about this stuff because this stuff is out there. It was published. It was also stated what? That Dan Inosanto chose to not be a part of the Nucleus at that time, but that he would always be welcome, right? So in other words, there would always be a door open to him and what have you. There was a thing about emeritus status or something, and I don't know. I don't even know what emeritus means. So I don't know about that stuff. Now, if you ask me, if I had formed a Jeet Kune organization, even if Dan Inosanto did not actively participate in it, I would probably still make him the titular head of the organization, and then we'd have the executive, right? But he would definitely sit at the top of it. So sorry if that doesn't give you any more information than you already had, magazine retriever. All right. It's obvious though that in the 90s there was some disquiet in the JKD world, without a doubt, right? That's obvious. I think that the formation of the Nucleus was well intentioned. The idea of making sure that if people wanted access to valid training in Jeet Kune, now here are people who spent time with Bruce Lee and they are available to impart that knowledge and understanding to others. I think that was a brilliant idea. But they didn't know how to deliver in terms of it being like, even if it's a nonprofit business, right? In terms of it being a thing where it was self-sustaining, I think that's where things fell apart. They didn't know how to do that, right? Okay, all right. So that's about it. The last thing I want to mention, right? Oh, oops. Okay, here it goes, Cesar. Technology makes a difference. The last samurai verse about when the technology is the same, the mindset. Right. Yeah. Right. Yes, technology does make a huge difference. But yeah, especially if we're talking about physical stuff, man, there could be a guy that trained old school, and there could be a guy that trained in all the latest scientific whatever. And if the old school guy, right, has the tougher mindset, he can come out on top, without a doubt. He can come out on top, right? So I think, especially if we're talking about physical prowess, then a strong mindset can beat somebody who actually trained more modern, right? Del Mountain says, the last I heard, Shannon Lee and Diana Inosanto are still friends, notwithstanding any internal JKD conflicts. Yeah, well, I I guarantee you, I probably shouldn't guarantee you since I don't really know, but I guarantee you, I'll still use the word that if somebody asked Linda Codwell today, what do you think of Dan Inosanto? I guarantee you she'd have nothing but good things to say about him, right? Ask Inosanto the same thing about her. So the same way, Del, that you're saying Shannon Lee and Diana Inosanto are still friends, notwithstanding any internal JKD conflicts, I don't think that it really did get to that point, between the Lees and the Inosantos. I really don't think it did. So, and I'm not surprised that Shannon Lee and Diana Inosanto would be friends, because they're both involved in the LA Hollywood entertainment industry, and they have a lot in common, and they've known each other for decades, and they are progeny of two of the most influential martial artists of the 20th and 21st century. So yeah, I'm not surprised at all. Man, look, if you were to hear that, so what's it called? The TV series Warrior, right? So I mean, I don't know if Warrior is still going on or what have you. I only just started watching it, and I think I got like 10 minutes into episode 1 of season 1. So I'm a neophyte when it comes to the Warrior series, and I don't know what's going on with Diana's. I know that she's at like Comic-Con and what have you with Ashoka, I think is the name of the series that she's in. So if all those things are continuing and Shannon Lee is still involved with Warrior and Diana is still in, that's what I mean by the two of them being somewhat simpatico, because they're both in the Hollywood entertainment industry, and they've been friends for a long time. And I don't think that any of that rigmarole with the nucleus and what have you would have affected that. I really don't. I really don't. I remember I remember in 1983, Kitty D'Amato said to me, she goes, Dwight, I got to tell you, these men in JKD, they're the biggest babies that I've ever met. Young girl said that to me when I was a young boy, right? And I've never forgotten that. So I think to a certain degree, all that stuff in the nucleus was just a bunch of men behaving badly, right? Um, Cesar said, what do you think will happen the day Dan Inosanto is no longer here? There is a lot of example of crisis when the head man dies at Parker, Nakayama, Oyama. And so I don't see that. I really don't. I really don't see that. My concern is what happens to the Inosanto Academy when Dan Inosanto is no longer here. I don't know if things have been put in place so that the Inosanto Academy continues, right? I have no idea. But you're talking about crises and or crises and what have you. No, because we've had what's Chris Kent's phrase? Jeet Kune, the identity crisis. Chris Kent has talked about the identity, Jeet Kune, the art of the identity crisis or what have you. So we have lived in Jeet Kune terms, we have lived with this ongoing crisis for decades. So on that unfortunate day when Dan Inosanto is no longer here, I don't see there being a new crisis. I think there'll be a void, right? Because he won't be there at the Inosanto Academy teaching. So, like I said, I hope that there's a plan for the Inosanto Academy to continue beyond that fateful day. look at all the people out there in the Jeet Kune Do world who have been doing their own thing, right, for the longest time. So if Sifu Dan is not there, worst case scenario, right? Nothing has been done to perpetuate. So the Inasano Instructor Association disbands. The Inasano Academy disbands. That's the void that I'm talking about. Now, is that a void that somebody or some bodies have to step in and fill? No, because stuff has been going on right alongside the fact that there is an Inasano Academy and there is an Inasano Instructor Association. How many other JKD instructor associations are there? They already exist. It's not like no. So you called Inasano the head man, and that is true. He is the head man. He is the head man of the Inasano Instructor Association, and he is the head man of the Inasano Academy. He is the head man of that of the all of the people in the JKD world um, whose lineage goes back to him, right? He's the head man. But not everybody whose lineage goes back to Inasano, not everybody who is a certified instructor under Dan Inasano is an active member of the Inasano Instructor Association. Not everybody who was ever a student of Dan Inasano's is an active member at the Inasano Academy. So there will be a void for sure, but I don't see a crisis ensuing because we've been in crisis mode for 50 plus years, unless I'm not imaginative enough. I don't know, Cesar. Good question. Right. Scorch says, I heard Diana Inasano mentioned that she found camaraderie with Shannon Lee because they were both mixed race girls growing up in the. Well, yeah, yeah. That's one of the reasons why I think they still would be friends, right? They're exactly the same in those regards that you mentioned, Scorch. Yeah. Bucky says, how can a Hollywood actor learn to honestly express themselves through JKD? I don't know, because I don't know anything about acting, right? So I don't know anything about acting and the process of learning to honestly express yourself because I'm not an actor. Now, I did have people reaching out to me and go, "Hey, man, I'm seeing this advertisement for Stars, and it's a movie. Is that you?" I had like three people this week reach out to me asking if it's me, but I'm not an actor, as you well know, Bucky. So I don't know. How could an Hollywood actor learn to honestly express? I think that a Hollywood actor who trained authentically or who trained in authentic Jeet Kune Do would probably relate the idea of honest self-expression through his physical art, right? Would probably find some commonality and relationship between his physical art and his performing art. I would say, but again, I can't really answer it because I don't know anything about the process of becoming an actor. I was told when we were shooting the island that I needed to react more because I don't do it because I forgot to do all that stuff, right? You know, so um, but honest self-expression, man. Um, I don't know if I ever told you this, Bucky, but that was one of the. So again, going back to my days and running the big school and what have you. So the root of the word express, the etymological root of the word express, literally means to push out. And so when I push out in a punch, when I push out in a kick, that is an exercise in expression. So when you hear Bruce Lee talking about the punches and the kicks being his way to express himself, I kind of I dig that. I get into that because it is a literal and a figurative. So actors, if they got to learn, you know, if they have to bring authenticity to a role and what have you, um, so the same way that to be authentic in JKD, you if you want to come to a high level understanding of boxing, right? So you go and you get some good boxing training because you want to develop that high level understanding. I think an actor, if an actor wanted to bring authenticity to the role of being a torturer, right? Then he might go. I don't think you can go get instruction in torture techniques, but he might go watch um, a documentary on the most notorious torturers or what have you, you know, and then um, he could inform his performance based on stuff that he found out about that guy. So like what Simon said earlier on in the comments about Bruce Lee absorbing and adapting um, with the excess of information, right? I think that would be part of that could be part of the process, right? For an actor. So I think it would be, again, I'm talking about authentic Jeet Kune. So he's got to be training with somebody who fully um, delivers on the fact that Jeet Kune is a process and not a product, right? See, because unfortunately, out there in the Jeet Kune world, there are people who, again, I think well-intentioned people, but they haven't locked on to that concept yet, that JKD is a process. So people would tell you that preparing for a role in acting is also a process. So that's where I think, as I talk more, right, and the brain clicks over, I think, Bucky, that there could be some kind of relationship, right? Magazine says, considering that Bruce Lee didn't teach any of his students exactly the same curriculum, that Dan and Asano passed down one variant of JKD and added to it. What are your thoughts on this? Okay, so this idea that Bruce Lee didn't teach any of his students exactly the same curriculum, I don't know that that's true. Okay, because I don't know that there was this curriculum right here. So, see, here's this curriculum. And on Mondays, this is what we're doing in the curriculum. And on Wednesdays, this is what we're doing. It. I don't know that there was ever that kind of organized curriculum for what Bruce Lee taught or how Bruce Lee taught. Because remember this, in Chinatown, Inosanto did most of the teaching. So dare I say, if things were organized, they were organized by him more so than being organized by Bruce Lee. I could see Bruce Lee having an idea about something. Okay, so let's test out this idea. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I want you to do this. Look, I think that training with Bruce Lee amounted pretty much to this. We warm up, we stretch out, we do some calisthenics or what have you, right? Okay, some physical conditioning, and then we spar. Okay, as opposed to, okay, we got to get this down in the curriculum. Okay, now we got to get that down in the curriculum. I don't know about that. I really don't. I have, I know that there are people who say that they have seen um, all three curricula from Seattle, Oakland, and LA. I could say that I have seen them also, but I didn't see anything that undoubtedly came from Bruce Lee. I saw a thing from Oakland, a curriculum from Oakland, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, this is Inosano's kickboxing material. And as far as I know, Inosano was, I mean, well, I know he used to go up to Oakland, but so he was like an unofficial member of the Oakland school. But yeah, so, but again, I can't say because I was in there, but I do not know of anything where it's like, oh, here's the curriculum laid out in Bruce Lee's handwriting, and you know there and it's been copied and given out and passed down through the ages and what have you. I don't know about that. So then this idea that everybody got a different training program from Bruce Lee and everybody was taught a little bit differently. I'm going to tell you something. There's a lot of romanticizing that has gone on over the decades. Okay. Um, Now I'll leave it at that. So then this thing about Inosano passing down a variant of JKD. No, no. Inosano did not pass down any variant of JKD and add to it. No, 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 no. You got to get that out. You got to get that out of your head, because this has been said so many times before. But I'll say it again because the question came up. Dan Inosano was told, we'll close the Chinatown school, and if you want to, and so I've heard variations on it, right? That he was told, take the most dedicated people to your backyard, train them there. Then I was told also that he asked for permission to do that, right? To do the backyard thing. And so some of the guys from the Chinatown school, right, went over. So, like, you see this picture here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So there's like 13 people, 13 students here, right? Excluding Inosano and Bruce Lee. Of those 13, to the best of my knowledge, and again, remember, I am not a Bruce Lee historian. If there's anything I could say, I am a Bruce Lee. I'm somewhat of a collector of books on Bruce Lee. Somewhat. I don't even have James Bishop's revised edition of Remembering Bruce Lee. So I'm not even that good of books on Bruce Lee collector. But as far as I know, when it came to the backyard, of these 13 people here, only Daniel Lee was a member of that backyard group, right? Now, because Hartzell, I'm pretty sure Hartzell was not a member of the backyard group, but that was only because he left and went back to whatchamacallit, to North Carolina. Right. So give me a second. Let me see if let me see if I can find it. Yes, there it is. Okay. So I'm going to show you something. All right. So get rid of that. Pull this up. Hang on one sec. There we go. Okay. Give that a second to get in there. All right. There we go. That's it. That's the backyard group. All right. Tackett, Bustillo, Dan Lee, Jerry Poteet, Bob Bremer, and Pete Jacobs. That's it. That group grew, right, as they spent more time in the backyard. So the backyard was like a what? Like a 4-year thing, I think, right? Because they opened up the Kali Academy in April of '74, right? Now, let me just explain something to you. We all ended up calling it the Kali Academy because the official name of it was too long. It is the Junfan Gung Fu and Filipino Kali Academy, right? Okay, so it's just a habit. It doesn't mean that there was no JKD there. Right. Okay. But anyhow, but we're talking about Inasano, add into it and what have you. So remember that the deal was, please don't. I'd be very disappointed if you commercialize your Jeet Kune Do knowledge. That's what Bruce Lee said, something like that to Inasano. So Inasano's thing was always, okay, well, we want to keep this JKD training thing going, but we don't want to be making money off of it and promoting it blatantly or what have you. So Richard Bustillo and I are Filipino heritage, and we think the Filipino arts are pretty cool. So what if we do this? What if we get a place and up front we do kickboxing and weaponry and what have you. But then in private, we continue the training that we were doing at Bruce Lee's place. That was the deal. This is before seminars. When seminars happened, when seminars started to happen, it's like, well, we can't, we even if we wanted to. See, so when seminars happened, the demand was for this JKD thing, right? Well, it's like, no, because that's a thing that stays private, to a certain extent, closed door and what have you. So instead, I can give you an idea of the concepts that go into JKD. And there's all these other cool martial arts systems out there that I think if you want to have as well-rounded a mind in martial art as somebody like Bruce Lee had, it would behoove you to be aware of these things and maybe even train in them. So, what I'm going to do as I train in these things, I'm going to teach out a little bit of what it is that I'm learning and what have you. And you guys will come to realize that there's more commonalities in different martial arts systems than there are differences. Okay. So that's what happened. So that's what some people call add-in to Jeet Kune Do. I wouldn't call it that. Okay. Yeah. So those are my thoughts on that. Cesar says, what's this? But artists like Alex Acuna, he is the man, who learn the martial arts and can see how they express themselves. So I have not had that conversation with um, Acuna, Michael Dubin and I have had somewhat of those conversations, right? Not deep and extensive. Um, and Michael is always trying to show me on the training floor at the Inasano Academy how these things relate to music. But because I have no formal training in music, I half the time don't understand what he's talking about. Right? I'm just like, I'm like, I think there's a Janet Jackson song that starts out, "Give me a beat" or something like that, right? That's it. Give me a beat, and I can do something with it, right? Whether it's shadow box into it, right? Empty hands or weaponry. If you give me a beat and you go, okay, well, can you do something on a piece of percussion with this beat? I can do something with it, but I don't understand clef, note, um, tone. I have no idea what any of that stuff is. I'm just a primitive. I'm at the primitive stage when it comes to the primordial stage when it comes to that stuff. But I can keep a beat to a certain degree, right? But yeah, you watch Euro Zambrano, you watch Michael Dubin, you watch Alex Acuna, you watch like I do almost every day. I'm not ashamed to admit it, but almost every day I play a Santana video. Okay, and more often than not, I play the song Toussaint Louverture, which has that, to my thought, the most incredible timbales solo by Jose Chipito Arias. So yeah, I get the thing about expression, but I don't know, but I can't articulate it as well as somebody like you could, Cesar. But definitely when these guys are playing, they're expressing themselves. So Bucky, again, going back to your question about acting and what have you, musicians, it's all art, right? So everybody is definitely expressing themselves, right? And I should stop talking about that because I do not know what I'm saying, right? Tim says he would have had to have taught many of them the same curriculum because they were in a class together. How do you teach 20 people in a class 20 different curricula? You don't. Um, yeah. Okay. So I think, Tim, when people talk about everybody being taught differently, I don't think they're talking about the class setting. Or if they are talking about the class setting, they're talking about the small group, not 20 people, because there were never 20 people in the backyard. So I think that's what they're talking about. That everybody, that people in the backyard, um, I think this idea that people were taught differently comes from the small group thing. And even then, even that, I don't think that that's what happened. I think when those 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 people were in the backyard, it was still the same thing. We warm up, we do some exercises or whatever, and then we start hitting each other or something like that, right? So yeah, I just think that's another one of those romanticized ideas that everybody got a different training program from Bruce Lee. Mm, I'm not so sure. I don't know. Impossible in a class environment, right? Simon says impossible in a class to teach every individual differently. No, you can't, right? Now, here's the thing. Different people will see different things. Different people will see things differently. Different people will have different interpretations of what they saw, and different people will come away from that class situation with different highlights, lowlights, or what have you. Well, yeah, that's the individualistic nature of the art of Jeet Kune. I don't know that that happens, or that happened back in like the days of Shotokan, the days of Wushu Quan, because it's like, no, there's a specific way to do this, and everybody has to fit in to that same bowl of soup, that same bowl of rice, or what have you. We cannot have the individual expression was not a thing. I think that was a radical departure, right, of Bruce Lee's, and that changed things for a lot of people. But again, yeah, how do you teach 20 people differently or whatever, right? Now, could there ever been a time where somebody said, well, your body type is more whatever, right? Um, here's one thing I heard. Dan Lee and Richard Bustillo, they came with boxing experience. And so this idea that you're right-handed, so you have to put your right side forward and what have you. I have heard that it was like, well, those guys can do that if they want, but their boxing is really good, so let them stay in orthodox lead. Okay, I've heard that, right? So Frank Nordquist, I should say, says the same way that Rocky Marciano tailored his boxing style to his short arms, he couldn't teach someone to box exactly the way he could. I see a parallel with Bruce Lee's teachings. Well, so now let's see. So if Marciano was teaching boxing, he couldn't teach jab, cross, hook, and uppercut. He would have to teach something different. No, he'd still have to teach him the basics, and then, right, and then the individual would have to do the work. So again, Bruce Lee would teach everybody the same thing, and then people had to individualize it for themselves. But I don't think that Bruce Lee was like, no, 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 no. You're gonna get this. Now you're gonna get that, and now I'm gonna give you a blend of this and that because you are this. Nah, 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 nah. There was nothing like that. Everybody's doing the same thing. Okay, so Rocky Marciano would teach people the same basic skills. Tactics and strategies might be a different thing, but when it comes to techniques, yeah. Okay, so a guy who has short arms versus a guy who has longer arms, yeah, their strategies will be different. But what are they going to be doing in boxing? They're going to throw the jab, they're going to throw the cross, they're going to throw the hook, they're going to throw the uppercut. So I don't know, Frank, that that means that Marciano's teaching and Bruce Lee's teaching are parallel, that they both would have been teaching people differently. No. Right. So as Simon says, give them the freedom to research and apply for themselves, but the original set of techniques were probably the same. Yes. We're not cool, Dwight. Don't diss James. No, 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 Tim. No, don't misunderstand me. No, 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 no. I am not saying that I no. I am. It's all on me. It's not James Bishop at all. It's all on me. I haven't made the time to get the damn book. So I'm not dissing James. I'm not dissing James Bishop, as in I don't even have it because it's not worthwhile, or I don't intend for it to be in my collection. Not at all. No, it's all on me. It's not on James Bishop. No. Yeah, Tim, you're making me laugh. Right. Okay, Simon says, some of the best guys I've learned from are Inosano lineage: Phil Norman, MKG guys, Brendan Westwood, Aaron Davis. all amazing martial arts, no matter what lineage. Yeah, right. Again, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, right? Oh well, this guy is from Poteet, so he's gonna be better than Inosano because a guy that comes from Inosano, man, that is such bullshit. It's not even funny, right? You just go, whoever it is you have a chance to train with, go train with them, right? Find out for yourself. Some you'll resonate with, some you might not resonate with, and life goes on, right? Yes, Simon. Um, Looking forward to reading Jesse Glover's book about JKD. Um, Del Mountain, I'm not sure. Is there a new book, or are you talking about the Jeet Kune between, or what was it? What's the title? Something between something and something. Um, yeah, it's a good book. Tim says Alex is primarily a Kali and Silat guy. Kali is JKD, Tim. Don't you know that? All right, Squirt says, have you ever heard Dan Inosano or her husband Ron Balicki mention continuing Dan Inosano's curriculum when he passes? No, personally, I have not heard them mention that, and I'm not sure what exactly would be meant by Dan Inosano's curriculum when he passes on. But I'll tell you this: as of right now, Ron Balicki is an excellent source for Inosano material, and his own, of course, but he's an excellent source. So um, it's like I said, all of this stuff is already happening. It's happening simultaneously. So when Inosano passes, it's not like, oh, now we will start to teach the Inosano curriculum. The Inosano curriculum is already being taught, whatever the Inosano curriculum is. It's already being taught. So Ron and Diana will continue teaching what they are teaching. Not all of a sudden now we're going to cross over and we're going to change to teach the Inosano curriculum because the lovable old guy is no longer with us, right? Yeah. Oh, okay. So Frank's saying, okay. So Frank, that's what we were talking about, right? That Jeet Kune is an individualized art. So if Marcion, so now you're not talking about students. You're talking about the two individuals. See, Frank, before you were talking about Marciano could not teach people to box the way he could, right? But now you're talking about Marciano said that he had to compensate for his short arms. Bruce Lee had to compensate for one leg being shorter than whatever, and nearsightedness. Exactly. Individualized. So all they could do is to present students, and I don't know that I don't know. I have no idea if Rocky Marciano was ever a boxing coach, right? All they could do is present people with the fundamentals, and then people got to go out there and individualize it for themselves. Yeah, okay. So we're on the same page. Good. All right. Right. That's it. Del, it's between Wing Chun and Jeet Kune Do. That's the name of the Jesse Glover book, right? Tim says he's trying not to get Alex in trouble. Tim, this time next week, let's see, it'd be 4:30. This time next week, we'll be getting ready to head out to you guys, Ron Reagan and I. So I'll see you in a little bit. Right. Okay, Cesar says, by the way, Bruce Lee kicks a lot, but talking about short limbs, Inosano said, in your beloved JKD philosophy book. Yes. Yes. It's so beloved. Look how ragged it is. Right? No, I have two other copies. Right. Um, Bruce Lee kicks a lot. Inosano says that a JKD man favors hand over kick. What do you think? Um, I think Bruce Lee kicked a lot because kicking, by virtue of being bigger movement, attracts the crowd, right? The audience, the viewing audience. Um, it's harder to do spectacularly um, than is punching. So if you can pull off good kicking, right? Man, now you're making me think about what was his name? Top kickers of the Kung Fu era. There was Dylan Tam. There was also, I think Billy Chong was a pretty good kicker, and then there was Huang Zhang Li, I think is his name, um, the guy who was Silver Fox in the Warrior. No, not Warriors 2. He was Silver Fox in the Secret Rivals with John John Liu, I think. Right. So kicking is a selling point for kung fu movies. I think that's why Bruce Lee developed his partially developed his kicking ability. In in the art and philosophy book, yes, Sifu Dan does say that JKD is a JKD man would favor punching over kicking. Yeah, because like I say, kicking is a ridiculous thing to do because you have to stand on one leg and use the other leg vigorously. I don't know that human beings were designed necessarily to do that. But if you have both feet planted on the floor and you can use your arms vigorously, that might make more sense. So, in terms of practicality, in terms of functionality, yeah, it might be. Cass Magda says um, in his Woma interview that he came to Inosano as a black belt in Taekwondo, and so he had gotten that kicking thing out of his system. And so next thing you know, here he is doing more handwork. He says something like that, doing more handwork than kicking. So it is what it is. But that doesn't mean that you cannot find a Jeet Kune Do practitioner who favors kicking over handwork. There's nothing that says that it has to be one or the other, right? Um, okay. Simon says, Simon says, Inosano will probably outlive us all. You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all, right? Tim says, I'll tell the pink monster. Oh, God. Okay, yeah. Tell the pink monster to prepare, Tim. Um, didn't Guru Inosano say that whenever Bruce Lee was serious, he would straight blast? I've heard Simon. I've heard variations on this. I think at Titans we heard something like when in doubt, straight blast. Um, when in doubt, straight blast. When you're tired, straight blast. When what was the other one? Oh, goddamn, what was the other one? Yeah, right. And Paul Vunak, for example, Paul Vunak has a whole video on straight blast and what have you. Then there's the Tim Tackett video that I think shows what 5 different variations of the straight blast and what have you. So it seems that straight blast was definitely a feature, right? A featured technique, right, of Jeet Kune Do, right? Mark Black says cinematic fights at the time, high kicks look good. Yeah, Right. Yes, that's true. That's true. Actually, I just sent that to my friend G. Anthony, the Way of the Warrior thing. Right. Where he has Chris Kent do the hook kick and the cyclone kick or what have you. Right. So that was it. Bruce Lee knew that kicking would would attract an audience. Right. So yeah. Um, and finally, Mark Black says, growing this animal will probably outlive us all. That'd be fine with me. That would be fine with me. All right. Okay. So guys, it's 7:45. I think we will we'll call it quits on that. Scorch says Bill Wallace's awesome kicks were the result of an injury to, yeah, a judo injury, I think it was, right? It would be very difficult. No, it would not be very difficult for Bill Wallace to teach others to kick like he could, because Bill Wallace has made a career over teaching people his kicking method. So it wouldn't be very difficult. Now, what might be very difficult is for people to acquire the same level of skill in kicking that Superfoot Wallace acquired over his decades. But it wouldn't be difficult for him to teach it. I think it'd be very easy for him to teach it. The results of his teaching, however, might be a different thing, Scorch. But I think it's definitely easy for him to teach. He's real good at what he does. He's a good instructor. So it would be easy for him to teach others to kick. Developing Bill Wallace level skill is a different thing, because what does it go back to? The individual's attributes, proclivities, aptitude, attitude, all that stuff. Okay. All right. So, all right. That is it for this evening, guys. I think I got everybody. I don't think I missed anything, but I'll when we close up, I'll go back through and see if there's anything that I need to talk about. So once again, probably by the end of next week, I'll have an updated Titans of JKD thing. It'd be really cool. Mick Tully, you got me really excited. I don't usually get excited about things involving boys, just girls. Right? But yeah, man, if you guys could come over for Titans 4, that'd be fantastic, right? Okay, so that is it for today. You guys know the deal. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. Here on the YouTube, you can join the Jeet Kune Dialogues channel. Just click the join link and you'll see the different subscription levels that we have. You can also support the show over at jkdrebel.com. Click on the Rebel Gear link, and that's where you'll see stuff like this. The Unified Martial Art Academy official Kali JKD t-shirt, also available in kitchen implement form and other type t-shirts and what have you. And at JKD, I'm sorry, at paypal.me/unified MA Miami, paypal.me/unified MA Miami. That is where you can see, you can get a copy, raw but edited, of the Jeet Kune Journey, paypal.me/unified MA Miami. All right. So, as I just told Tim, next Friday we'll be on the road. So there might not be an episode of the Jeet Kune Dialogues. So then that puts us back to what would that be? The 12th or something, right? When we would resume. But we'll see, right? So as always, you guys take care. Have a great weekend. Happy Easter to all of you who celebrate, and I'll see you soon. So this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, signing off. Take care. Talk soon.